So, I've finally gotten my hands on the new iPad Pro. So let's go through the unboxing and my first test on this new 2024 OLED iPad Pro to find out if this thin form factor and the new OLED screen is really good. So in the box, other than the manuals, there's the Apple polishing cloth, since I've gotten the nano texture variant, a nice black color braided charging cable, which is also an exclusive color for the 13-inch iPad Pro. Then finally, there's the 20-watt power brick. So yes, there's no more Apple stickers. Very sad for me and maybe a lot of y'all too, so keep that in mind. So when Apple mentioned that this is the thinnest Apple device they have made, I was curious to find out, and holy mother of God, this is really thin. Well, nobody told Apple, go ahead and make it thinner, because I was totally fine on how it was previously, but this significant change was really something that it was even more impressive than I would thought it would be. And the weight of the iPad was also really light. It was super light to a point where I felt like I was holding an iPad Air instead. So who would really benefit all of this? Well, everyone, because if you work in a hospital or even an event promoter crew during event production on ground, carrying this lightweight iPad Pro is a total game changer. Now, one thing to really keep in mind is the fact that even though it is thinner and lighter, it does not mean that there are any level of compromises, whether or not it's the battery or the performance, thanks to the new M4 chip, the very first Apple device to have that, and more on the chip performance later on in this video. Now, I was eager to see the display in real life, firstly because it had the nano texture material. Now, I've personally gotten very used to my Apple Studio display with the same glass finish as my main screen on my home desk setup, so check that video out in case you haven't done so. But with all this matte type of finish on the display, it meant that I could use the iPad Pro all around the studio without worrying about glare, since there are lots of video studio lights coming from the ceiling. And the reason why I was floored by this performance, because usually matte finish and brightness does not really go hand in hand. Then the sharpness level was also very surprising, because on the Apple Studio display, some people, not me, were saying that it was not as sharp, but I didn't notice any sort of a softness, especially when it comes to text as well. Then another thing that I was eager to see in real life is of course the new OLED screen's quality, and this even blew me away more than the overall design of the iPad. It is honestly like having an OLED TV shrunk down to a 13-inch screen with super amazing black levels. So whether or not you're using the iPad as a video content display or just for work, especially when it comes to multitasking, the high refresh rate is amazing to give you that seamless scrolling experience. Now, while the previous generation iPad Pro also had 120Hz, but because this screen is OLED, you will get a better response time here, moving between 10Hz to 120Hz, depending on what exactly that you're using when you're using the iPad. So yes, the display on this iPad is already a huge reason for you to get it, as this Ultra Retina XDR display with two OLED screens on top of each other was not just for the sake of sounding cool and just mentioning about the technology, but it truly is showing the display's quality. So the Magic Keyboard was one of the main accessories which I was really excited to test, because I use it every single day on my M2 iPad Pro. Now, I went with the black color variant to match the iPad space black color, and as a frequent Mac user or a MacBook user, the experience on typing on this new Magic Keyboard was so similar to like I was using a Mac keyboard and also the trackpad as well. The aluminium feeling and the palm rest was super nice, and the keys were super responsive. The trackpad also has haptic feedback, very Mac-like too, and as a person who's always using the function keys on the Mac, this was something that I really appreciated on this, since it now has that. And I also love how now when you fold the iPad with the Magic Keyboard, it really looks like your Mac is on a diet. Really impressive. Now, I haven't gotten myself the Apple Pencil Pro yet, so stay tuned for my in-depth review of this iPad Pro with that new Apple Pencil Pro. So let's talk performance, but just for context, the exact variant that I've got is the Wi-Fi plus the cellular version in space black with 2TB of storage to satisfy the huge files for my video editing needs. Firstly, the front camera's performance was really great, and it has been switched between portrait to a landscape position too, so there are better FaceTime angles, and also face unlock was also way better, especially with this new landscape orientation. So if you're looking to use the iPad as a main video calling machine, especially with center stage, you can do it very well on this. Then the rear cameras, while reduced from 2 to 1, has a significant improvement on taking photos specifically for documents for scanning purposes thanks to the new adaptive True Tone flash. Then I tested out gaming on this iPad Pro and the performance was just excellent, not only from the overall responsiveness but also how snappy it is compared to the mini LED display previously, and of course the screen quality was flawless as mentioned very in depth earlier. And then as for photo and video editing, once again because of its screen quality, I know I keep saying about that, but that is true, you would see a huge difference in your experience using with photo editing since it's very color accurate too. Then as for video editing, I tested out some of my 6K resolution ProRes video footage for my Blackmagic Cinema camera and it was smooth sailing all the way. But among all, I'm really eager to test out the multi-cam setup with Final Cut Pro for iPad because, oh my god, the idea of having different camera angles all powered with a single iPad is just crazy cool. So stay tuned for that once again as soon as that feature is available officially. Then when it comes to regular work like streaming shows, taking notes, the performance improvements are not hugely noticeable compared to the M2 iPad Pro. But if you're doing some heavy graphic or video editing work, then yes, there will be a difference. And here's where the new M4 chip really shines over here. So let's talk about that next. So being the tech nerd that I am, I really wanted to understand what makes the M4 chip tick and how it managed to get the designers to make the iPad very thin without sacrificing performance. So if you're worried about longevity and overheating, this will answer those questions. And the answer was more simple than I thought it was. Firstly, because it's the second generation 3nm technology, hence there were a lot of work done in terms of the improvements and the architecture of the chip that allowed for a very thin iPad Pro. Then how about heat then? Well, there is a graphite sheet at the back of the chip, so it helps with the overall thermal performance even when it's performing at its highest speed. So if you're worried about overheating and how long the iPad can last you, well, this is an answer for you. So with that, stay tuned for my in-depth review of this new OLED iPad Pro, where I'll be testing the tablet further daily on how the battery life, especially when using it together with the Apple Pencil Pro and other accessories as well. Now do let me know what you would like to specifically know or test on this iPad Pro, and I'll revert back in my in-depth review. But do check out my in-depth review of the M2 iPad Pro over here and how the iPad Pro works very well with DaVinci Resolve for iPad over here.